Welcome to Garage Gym Athlete Cool Downs. These episodes are short, actionable podcasts pulled from previous interviews and content we've been publishing for the last several years. So go for a walk, hop on the rower, or clip into the bike for this cool down episode.
Throwers throw, lifters lift, riders ride,
Right.
I get up every day about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and the coffee, I've already made the coffee from the night before, and I sit down, and you'll notice I answer every email. I deal with all that stuff first, and then I do my Columbia College work, the religious studies class. If I have any articles I need to write, I write them. And it's just not that big a deal to me. It's what I do. And then at 9 o'clock, I get ready because at 9:30, people from all the world show up to work out with me in my gym. And we train for an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes, hour and 10 minutes. And then we go eat breakfast. And then after breakfast, I tend to do podcasts and errands, house errands and things like that, which are always a good time. And then the afternoons, I try to devote my afternoons to cooking dinner, which I've already got on tonight's jambalaya, and I've already got the first part done. I won't have to do anything until about 5 or 6 now. I hang out with my dog. I take him for a walk. He's barking now because the mailman is still coming. And I spend the afternoon sometimes really just prepping myself to write. I read, which if you're not reading, you're not writing. I talk a lot in conversations. I call people. We talk about lifting. That's when I do my consulting and things like that. But I find that everything just kind of winds together. If the more proactive I am before I go to bed, the more writing I get done the next day.
And what are you reading primarily? Do you read a lot of primarily studies, or are you into?
Oh God, no! They're perfect. They're worthless.
Okay.
I don't think I read a study in years that made me go, huh? That was, well, yeah. I mean, they just these studies where they have 6 freshman kids and they find out they get stronger by lifting weights. I don't think we need to do that. No, I am well versed in the classics. I have bookshelves throughout the house. I'll tell you in a minute what I'm doing right now. But like if I just turn around right now, I see the Sword and the Stone, and Gilgamesh, The Art of War, Hemingway, J.K. Rowling's Fantastical Beasts, a very interesting book called An Exaltation of Larks. And then there's some other. Then there's weightlifting books. I just finished Tom Brady's new book, John Bruner's new book on Narrow Grip Challenge, a book on success. There's Tommy Kono's book there. So I do read a lot in the field, but one thing I also try to do is I try to find an area I'm weak in and expand on it. And this will sound maybe odd to many of your listeners, but I grew up in the great books tradition. So when I was in school, we didn't read kids' books. We only read, Robinson Crusoe is kind of a kid's book, Treasure Island, those kinds of books. So as an adult, I decided I have a lot of young godchildren and teenage friends who are reading books. So, obviously I love the entire Harry Potter series. And one of my godchildren, Chloe, said to me, well, have you ever read Percy Jackson? So I finished the 5 basic Percy Jackson books. Then I just finished the Greek hero stories. But while I was in the middle of it, The Art of Manliness had a very interesting thing. And this, just stick with me here because I think it's funny, about how everything you need to know about life you could learn from the Hardy Boys. So I went to the little bookstore near my house, which it's just a private, independent bookstore, which is funny because they also carry my books, which cracks me up because I'll come in and the nice lady will say, "Oh, it's one of the authors," and she'll make a nice little bit. I don't know if it's ever sold a book, but it makes me happy. So I'm reading the Hardy Boys books, and The Art of Manliness has this great article, well worth your time. I wouldn't mind if you could link it. The Art of Manliness and then the Hardy Boys. It's a very good article. And so it got me reading the Hardy Boys. And here I am, this 60-year-old man. I've never read them. The stories, It's funny. I told my wife said, "What are they like?" I go, "Well, they're kind of like Dan Brown books, except they're good." How do you know something's going to happen in a Dan Brown book? Is it's the end of the chapter, and they're very much like that. But they're a delightful, fun read. I know. So I guess right now I'm for fun reading some children's books, but also trying to keep up with the various good strength books that have been coming out, and we've had a good couple of years, I think, in the strength field. And I also, if you read my Wandering Weights, you can see that I do have an eclectic reading list online. I read a phenomenal article the other day on curbs. Street curbs.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what a political ping pong ball those things are, and how they really define what's happening to a city. The curb. It was so. I like that kind of thing. I like when something blows my mind to go back to the 1960s. That makes me really go, "Huh, I had no idea."
I think that's very fascinating. I really like what you're reading. To be honest, that's what I was asking if you, are diving into studies all the time and strength conditioning books. But I love that you are very well-rounded in your reading, and you like to really expand. I think that's awesome.
Well, go back through all the strength books and find something on farmer walks or loaded carries. Nothing. They're still arguing about 1 set versus 3 sets, which frankly was answered by DeLorme and Watkins in 1951. Yeah, it's 3 sets, but it could be 5. It could be 1. Everything works for a couple of weeks. And so I just get so tired of reading. I just feel like, I have all the strength and health magazines, back until about probably the mid-50s. So from the mid-50s to about, I think it's 1985. And whenever somebody tells me they invented something, I just go back there and I find it. I go back to John Jesse's book, The Wrestling Conditioning Encyclopedia, and everything that's been invented in the last decade is there. Last 2 decades. There's nothing. We have gotten better, I think. We now really look at movement better than we did, say, 20, 15 years ago. So we are taking these exercises and then moving them into more appropriate for the senior audience, which I guess I am now. But the problem is, at the same time, the exercise Nazis have showed up, that if you do this in this movement, you will die. And it's like, okay, stop. So that's the issue in the field I'm in, is that we tend to swing wildly back and forth. You got to make people puke. You should never hurt anybody. And we just swing wildly back and forth like a pendulum. So it's very difficult for me to read anything in the field, unless it's a book. Now, I like books in the field. Stu McGill's new book, The Gift of Injury, I think is brilliant. I just think that book is brilliant. I really liked Tom Brady's TB12 book, but I guess I'm supposed to hate it from what I read on Facebook. That's kind of a joke. I think we're at a real wonderful time in our industry with books. And I apologize for him. He just gets fired up when someone walks, and it's the mailman's been parked out there for 20 minutes. But I think we're in a real good time. Certain authors who would have never. I mean, Stu McGill's books. I'm just picking him up. His work is so clear and clean. But who would have? I'm not sure people would have published him 40 years ago. And myself, I don't think I got published. And it's very happy that, for me, that all these smaller places and self-publishing have showed up in our field, because I think that's actually better than having those New York City office mills knocking out a book on strength. I mean, you look at some of the nonsense that comes out in those big corporations. It's like, did you just cut and paste this last stupid thing you said? And it's what I find fascinating too.
Thanks for listening to today's Cool Down. If for some ridiculous reason you are not subscribed to Garage Gym Athlete programming, fix that problem right now. Go to GarageGymAthlete.com, sign up for a free trial, get started with us today. Thanks for listening.